It's handy when video game villains have big shootable eyes, maniacal laughs, a penchant for kidnapping your girlfriend, or anything that lets on that they're definitely evil, but sometimes they throw you a sheep in wolf's clothing. In the roughest of examples, these can sometimes be the very people you've been trusting with your hide up until this point, so it's a nasty feeling when they go and stab you in the back that you expected them to be protecting. In some cases you might be expecting it, in the most heartbreaking you absolutely were not. And we were spoiled for choice with this list. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are the 10 most shocking video game sidekick betrayals. Spoilers lie ahead, so beware. Number 10. Astrid, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, it's commonly believed that the Dark Brotherhood quests are the best guild quests in all of Skyrim. Or at least I think that, and now I've said online that everyone thinks that. Nevertheless, they're famous for their twists and turns. There's plenty of backstabbing going on in the infamous assassin-riddled Brotherhood, but it's usually the literal kind, and less so the turning on your own team kind. That is, until Astrid screws the pooch and her entire crew over. We're playing it a little fast and loose with the definition of sidekick here, but Astrid is indeed your sister in murdery crime as leader of the Dark Brotherhood. Problem is, Astrid gets a little sus when you're appointed as the new listener liaison to the Night Mother. She feels threatened and gets her betrayal on. She sells you out to the Empire after sending you on an epic Emperor poisoning quest. Rocking up back at the Sanctuary post-assassination, as you're well used to doing by this point, is a real shock. Turns out you only poisoned a decoy, and Astrid's betrayal attempt itself is double-crossed as the leader of the Emperor's special security force turns on her and sacks the Dark Brotherhood's sanctuary. Many of your comrades die, and you can find a decidedly charred and remorseful Astrid in the remains asking you to kill her. Number 9. Master Li, Jade Empire. BioWare's Jade Empire isn't exactly an anime betrayal, but it is a shock turn, so let's take a wander down memory lane. Master Li was brother of the Empire and your teacher in Jade Empire. For the first half of the game, he serves as your mentor and everything's all good. Then once you vanquish the Emperor, Li tells you how proud he is of you and then freaking kills you. The Water Dragon spirit walks you through a little resurrection process, but the biggest sting comes from realizing you were just a pawn in Li's major revenge scheme. Then there's the whole him becoming a god and proclaiming him to be the new Emperor of the Jade Empire. That's a bit of a problem too. This was a turn plenty of players didn't see coming, which makes it so fantastic. I mean, this guy made you who you were and had your back every step of the way, and that makes your final confrontation with your ex-master bear a ton of narrative weight. Number 8. Kendra, Dead Space. Kendra Daniels is one of the surviving humans attempting to scrape by and survive along Isaac on the USG Ishimura, and for the most part she appears to be trying to help you find your girlfriend Nicole. That is until the end of the game when Kendra tells you that Nicole's been dead the whole time, and she knew about it. She also reveals that she's been using you to try and track down a piece of alien technology called the Marker for her superiors. She not only uses you to do her bidding the whole time, she drops the nasty news on you that all your efforts to rescue Nicole have been for naught. She does die by being smushed to smithereens by a tentacle though, so that might make you feel a little bit better before Isaac faces his own not so great fate. Number 7. Big Smoke and Ryder, Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas. There's some argument over which massive GTA betrayal is the nastiest, and whichever tops your list, this one certainly belongs on ours. The Grove Street family stick together, except they super don't, and the dudes you expect to have your back through thick and thin just totally screw you over after all. CJ's lifelong friend Big Smoke and Ryder betray the GSF by meeting up with Crash. That is the community resources against street hoodlums and the Ballers gang, ultimately opting to sell everyone else out for money and power. The insult on top of the crappy injury is that CJ watches the meeting go down, including the car that was present when his mum was accidentally murdered by the Ballers gang at the start of the game. Eventually delivering your own method of justice feels fair, but the scene comes as a real shock and is honestly just super freaking disappointing. Number 6. Wheatley, Portal 2. Man, this one still smarts, and I don't know who I'm more mad at about it, Wheatley or the game. The world of Portal is pretty cold and unfriendly as it is, so when Wheatley, the wisecracking personality core, rocks up in Portal 2, it's a real relief. It's nice to have a quirky pal along for the ride, and Stephen Merchant's voice work makes the little dude all the more delightful. That is, right up until he takes GLaDOS's place and power corrupts him. At this point he totally turns on you, and the worst part is, we did not see it coming. Fighting him also really sucks because you still really want to have this dude's back, but ultimately you have to boot him out into space. Still really sad to see the little guy floating around in space remorseful though. Number 5. General Shepard, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. If we're covering our bases on brutal betrayals, we absolutely cannot leave out General Shepard. I apologize in advance for resurfacing this memory. For some, this bastard will quite rightly be the worst of the worst on this list. Shepard was the commander of Task Force 141 and sends the team on what are essentially suicide missions. Towards the back end of the story, Roach and Ghost are just about to obtain information that may help prevent World War III. Modern Warfare 2 gets us across the fact that the Russians and Germans are bad news, but it turns out the worst of all seemed to be on our team all along. Turns out the dude who claimed to fight terrorism was actually perpetuating it. That's because he wanted to be a war hero, and also he saw it as vengeance against a bunch of troops that were lost under his command. Not only is that pretty freaking bad, Shepard comes to save Roach and Ghost and instead shoots them and then burns them alive. Unbelievably uncool. Number 4, Vincent, A Way Out. A Way Out is a co-op game. Co-op meaning cooperative. You actually break out of jail together and everything's all well, you learn about each other, you learn about each other's families. That is right until the end of the game and it turns out someone is a big lying liar. That somebody is Vincent, who, despite acting like Leo's partner in crime for the entire freaking game, reveals himself to be a police officer that's been undercover the whole time and has just been using Leo to avenge his brother's killer. The turn comes out of nowhere, and the worst part is your buddy next to you is playing the other party, and only one of these guys is gonna make it out alive. It's a brutal end to an otherwise delightful cooperative adventure game. If you want to know the fastest way to go from solving puzzles joyfully with a friend to having an enormous argument, the end of this game is the way to do it, in my experience. I will be taking no more questions at this time. Number 3, Lance Vance, Grand Theft Auto, Vice City. Lance Vance was a fan favorite in GTA Vice City, a game that puts you in the shoes of Tommy Vercetti. Now, while the two are friends, it's safe to say Tommy isn't the nicest to Lance. He goes out of his way to tell Lance that the Vercetti business is his operation. So look, it may not come as the world's biggest surprise when he turns against you. That doesn't make it hurt any less when he heads back to his old boss to sell you out to your nemesis, Sonny Forelli, and the Italian Mafia though. Not to mention feeling pretty foolish if he did indeed get one over on you. Number 2, Dutch, Red Dead Redemption 2. Yes, Dutch. His lackey Micah sucked and always sucked, and we knew he was going to be bad news, but Dutch was your guy. Dutch was Arthur's guy. Seeing him turn on you was absolutely heartbreaking. Dutch, the head of the Van der Linde gang, may not be the most villainous villain on this list. You could argue he's hardly a villain at all, but watching him betray Arthur is absolutely cruel. We know Micah manipulated Dutch and played on his weaknesses, and Arthur starts questioning Dutch's decision-making more and more as his calls make less sense. But the fact that it takes Arthur almost dying for Dutch to begin to listen to him about Micah being a massive douche is agonizing. Even then, you feel so terribly let down, and your connection to Arthur makes it sting all the more. The moment where Arthur tries to convince Dutch that Micah is the rat and he won't believe you severely sucks, as does the fact that he gets most of the gang to side against you. Arthur deserved better. Number 1, Frank Fontaine, BioShock. Yes, you knew this one was coming, and even if you've heard this story a million times before, there's no arguing that this is an excellently executed betrayal. Would you kindly has become one of the most infamous phrases in gaming, thanks to your sidekick Atlas, aka Andrew Ryan's arch-nemesis Frank Fontaine. The underwater epic adventure narrative comes to a head when you murder Ryan with a golf club and subsequently discover your friendly neighborhood guide Atlas is an infamous conman. Not only that, the entire personality of Atlas, his appearance, his family, and backstory was spun out of lies in order to have you do his bidding. You discover that you are Ryan's son, kidnapped by Fontaine and conditioned to obey the phrase, "Would you kindly?" So anytime a request happened after uttering the phrase, "Would you kindly?" you would have to obey. And because it's a video game, you did just that. You felt betrayed by Atlas, and honestly, betrayed by the entire damn game. There weren't many who could truly say they saw that one coming. Let me know down in that comment section which video game sidekick betrayal hurt you the most. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more content.